Hey guys, welcome to the Iron Circle podcast interview. Today we're going to be interviewing Phil, and he is a marriage counselor, marriage expert here. And we're going to talk to him a little bit today about the relationship questions that you guys had and a few other questions as well. So I thank you guys for tuning into this. And then, Phil, thank you so much for joining us. Do you mind kind of giving us your background, exactly what you're called in your position, and how long you've been doing it, and what got you into it?
For sure. Thanks for having me here. The reason I laughed is because it feels weird to even think of myself as a marriage expert, right?
Yeah,
Like who's an expert? Not to say I don't
right.
have issues in my own marriage by any means, but yes, I am a licensed professional counselor. I got my 2000 hours, my degree. I have a master's in education. I worked as a school counselor for 10 years and I'm trained in emotionally focused therapy. It's basically this idea that as humans, we experience emotion. And as a Christian, we know that we experience emotion, and emotions have to be experienced. And the best analogy I come up with is you can read a book on swimming and you can watch a video on swimming, but it doesn't make sense till you get in the water.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go too deep because then you have a bad experience, but you don't want to just walk up to your ankles either. And so my job is to help people wade into the water, so to speak, and do it in a
Mm.
way that's challenging, but not overwhelming so they can grow.
That's really good. That's really good. I like the water analogy. And yeah, like you said, you can't just read about them, you have to experience emotions. And yeah, that's a big thing for men is that we sometimes refuse to experience some emotions. And I'm sure that'll come out in some of these questions here today.
For
So,
sure.
well, awesome. Thank you for the introduction there. And I'm going to hop right into it if you're okay with that.
Please. You're
All
good.
right. So, our first question of the day was, what's the biggest mistake Christian men make in their marriage or future marriage without realizing it?
Oh, yeah. Such a great question. The biggest mistake that they make, I'm going to just own it. What was the biggest mistake that I made is not truly knowing myself. Not truly knowing how I am wired, how I handle emotion, how I handle discomfort.
Hmm.
So it's less of a mistake and more of a lack of training.
Yeah.
Best and because you talked about the water analogy, we have to use analogies when we're discussing emotion because we can't see it and we can't touch it, right?
Right.
And so it's sort of the same mistake of like getting into a car before you learn how to drive. Right? It's we get into relationships, we get married without knowing how to do relationship. We just assume we know how to do relationship because we're alive. But
Yeah.
we've never sat down and gone, "Wait a second, am I good at relationships? Wait a second, do people feel like I listen to them?" If you are single right now or you're engaged, or it doesn't even matter right now, go ahead and ask people that you trust. Ask them, "Am I a good listener?" Or ask them, "What is it like for you to be my friend?"
Mhm.
And be
Yeah.
honest and tell me,
Honest.
and
Yeah.
invite that. That takes humility, and then their answers will help shape you to become the man that you wanna be.
That's a good point there. It's like you said, not necessarily a mistake, but it's just not knowing. And I know for me, when I got married, it was very much like, yeah, I thought I knew things the
Of
way I
course.
was. Like I have a good idea, but like you said with the water analogy, you can only get in so deep or so shallow. I had a shallow understanding in a lot of areas of who I was when it came to
Mm,
how I tick and what makes me do what I do. And then getting married is like, wow, I didn't realize all these things that I didn't know. And you didn't know what you didn't know kind of thing. And yeah, so,
right.
but definitely, I guess when going into marriage, like you said, the challenge there is go ask your friends, are you a good listener? How is it being my friend? But
Yeah,
another thing is going into marriage or going into a relationship, realize that you don't have all the answers and be looking for them as quickly as possible and is in everywhere that you can. That's probably a good idea as well. Just being honest with yourself. I have not arrived, right? So,
and to that point, I have to clarify, you will never have all the answers.
right.
But since it's early in the interview, I cannot stress enough, the tool that you have to learn is how to be a listener. because listening is the currency of relationship. It's proving to the other person that you see them, you hear them. And I
Yeah.
see this pattern over and over. Women will say, I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen. And every guy will go to their grave going, I do hear you. And, you can send a text to heaven about how great a listener you think you are, but it depends on the people around you. They get to decide. If they
Right.
feel like you're a good listener, then you are.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Oh, thank you for that. Number 2.
Yeah.
How can a man lead spiritually when he doesn't feel spiritually strong himself?
Mhm. And it's interesting again as we talk about this realm of emotion. What does
Yeah.
it mean to not feel strong spiritually?
Yeah.
That means something different to you, that means something different to me, and that's where there's a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm, no.
Um, Highly recommended just because this concept of emotional health is spiritual health in the sense that we're called to love people, we're called to love God, and our
Mm,
ability to love is directly capped to our feelings, right? We always go, oh, I didn't, it like, when your wife says something you don't like, how do you respond? Do you love her or do you go, oh, and then defend and fight, and then you don't hear her? But the way that you can spiritual lead is by laying your life down. That looks like, I
yeah.
know this brought something up in me. I'm going to process that. I'm going to understand why am I even defending? I saw a video from Eaglebrook, the church out of Minnesota. My wife's from Minnesota, and it came
Okay.
out in October, and the title was "How to Live Without Being Offended." And I
Mm,
love that line. I think of Christians like it's the glory to overlook an offense, right? In the book of Proverbs, and we get offended so easily, and we get offended because we have a weak emotional tools.
mm,
And when you learn to understand and take ownership of your own feelings, you realize nothing's personal. It's not about us. And we know that logically. It's about God. But when other people send messages, they're hurting. They're going like your wife will say, you care more about work than me." Now that's a feeling. It's a feeling of I don't feel seen by you. I don't feel valued. I don't feel heard. But we take offense to that and we go, "What do you mean? Of course I care about you. Can't you see how hard I'm working?" And then what happens is there's two messages clashing in the middle because no one is truly listening. And
yeah.
so spiritual leadership looks like it's not about me. I can be empathetic. I can hold space. And if you don't feel that you can do that, then that's your signal on the dashboard. Hey, let's take a look at why. Why don't I feel this way? So long answer. But I could talk about this stuff all day. So
Yeah.
important.
So it's basically, like you said, basically that spiritually strong goes back to, I guess, back to your emotions first, right? The capability you have to be emotional, and what your emotions look like.
They're
And then,
intertwined.
yes, and then there's the, like you mentioned, the laying down your life there. I guess maybe priorities can play a factor in how you feel. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's so much here.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this morning. There's that C.S. Lewis quote, like, "Don't bother whether or not you love someone. Act as if you did, and then at the end, you'll discover the great secret. You've come to love that person." Right. So there's this relationship between our behavior and our hearts, and sometimes we have to like read the Bible even when we don't feel it, because that behavior will produce the fruit and holiness that's required. Um, but there's this other part of we can't just deny how we feel either. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to throw this out there. This is not, theological or like a sound. This is just a thought. We're men made in God's image, right? In Genesis,
Right.
the line is, let us make man in our image, which is
Right.
interesting. If you're not aware, it's plural.
Hmm.
And so there's this idea of the Trinity of God in mankind. And I think God's been opening the doors for me of like, well, we have our physical body, but we also have our heart. We also have our mind. And so many times we try to like separate those two. and culture teaches us that they're just totally separate things. But it's sort of the same way of trying to separate the Trinity of God. Like they're yeah, they're distinct and they're unique, but they all communicate with each other and they all work together. And I think there's a
Yeah.
part of that that we deny our emotion because we just don't understand it. Emotion's kind of like the Holy Spirit. So a lot of Christians that go, Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, I don't know what that means. I don't like it. I'm gonna just ignore him. And we cut out a third of God. And in the same way
Mm.
we cut out our emotions, we cut out a third of our humanity and God represented in us.
No, that's actually a really good analogy there. I like that. And you talk about how we separate them all. They are separate, but they are
Mhm.
all connected, just
Yeah.
like the Godhead is. And we
Yeah.
know no one can find a perfect analogy for the Godhead because there's so many
Right.
out there, but they always are missing
Yeah.
some element. But I think that's true about our emotions as well, or our who we are, our being.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, going back to what you said about loving someone even when you don't feel like it. Well, Bible says that the two greatest commandments. What are the two greatest commandments? He said, "Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, your mind, your soul."
Mhm.
And then he said, "And love thy neighbor as
As
thyself."
yourself.
And it says, "On these two hang all the law and the prophets." Everything else will take
Mhm.
care of itself if you can master these two. Now, the
Yes.
reality of us mastering these two on earth, I don't know if we'll ever master it, but we can always strive for it. And I think that that speaks a lot about, I may not feel like this, I may not feel like reading my Bible, but I do it out of, hopefully not out of obligation, is more like I do it out of my love for Christ. I do it out of my love for the Lord. And of course I know this is
Yeah.
going to help me. And I think yeah, taking all these answers together with your emotions. Don't ignore it and pretend like it doesn't exist, because that's not going to help. And like you said, you're cutting off a third of you right there. I
Yeah.
realize this is how I feel, but here's what I'm going to do anyway, kind of thing. And this will help.
Yeah. And I think I've been following a lot of business mentors online, and one of them is talking about like tactical definitions. Like, how do we define the behavior? And so that example, I don't feel like reading my Bible, but I know I need to. Let's take, I don't like Christmas time. I don't feel like entertaining my in-laws, but I need to, right?
Yeah.
And so that's how where most people stop. They say, "Well, I shouldn't feel this way, so I'm just gonna do it." And to be clear, the behavior is important, but tactically, if you're listening to this, when you say, "I don't feel like reading my Bible," I want you to ask, "Well, why not?"
Mm.
I want you to ask, "What is that? What is it like for you when you think about reading your Bible?" I want you to pull on that thread because you might be surprised what comes up. You might go, "Well, it's boring." I go, "Okay, well, why? Why is talking to God and reading about God boring?"
Mm.
And well, maybe I don't know where to start. Oh, okay. So maybe you're not bored. Maybe you just are confused. Maybe you need help. You need guidance. Or why? Maybe, okay, well, I had a bad experience with church and the Bible was, oh, so that's where you're connecting, a religiosity and legalism from your earlier church experience. And that's subtly taking over into when you think about reading your Bible today. Oh,
Mm.
well, let's look at that. And so pausing, asking, why? What is this that's coming up for me? And then
Yeah.
translate that to the in laws. Why? Why do I feel this tension in my chest when I think about them? Oh, well, I feel like they're going to say something offensive. Okay. Well, what happens if they do? Well, I just get angry and I don't know how to handle it. Oh, so maybe you're saying you don't have tools. And nobody likes being in a position where you don't have tools and you don't know what to do. Is that what And then you just keep pulling that thread.
That's good. Getting down to the foundation, the crux of the issue. We because you're saying based on that example, we like to treat the symptoms and put a band-aid on it, but we never get down to the roots of it and figure out what's causing this and let's deal with it from the bottom up.
Yep.
Yeah, good, good. These are good answers, and we're only 2 questions in. All right. Uh, number 3, what are the most common things that quietly destroy marriages long before divorce is ever mentioned?
Oh yeah. Um, what are the things that quietly destroy marriages? So divorce doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you can think of relationships as a collection of deposits and withdrawals, right? A lot of men don't realize they're taking withdrawals. Um, until it's too late. And then their wife has served them papers or they're moved out or whatever, and they're just blindsided. And it's such a common pattern. And it's so sad and so tragic. It doesn't have to be that way. And so basically, it starts with today, because today is all we have.
Yeah.
And today, go to your wife in humility, or your partner, your girlfriend, or whatever, and say, hey, how are we doing today? How are we doing relationally? How are you? Like, I love, what is his name? Not Gary Smalley. Yeah, Gary Smalley, The Love Languages. What is his name?
Oh, I don't know.
There's an idea, love languages, super
Mhm.
popular book. It talks about the 5 love languages. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever read it though.
So the concept is that people give and receive love in different ways,
Right.
which makes sense. And
Yeah.
some how I feel loved is different than my wife, and that could even change depending on the day. But the idea is that there's acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving, and quality time. He divides 5. It's not like there's probably more, there might be a little less, whatever. But the point is that each of us has like this, they call it this love tank. And I love again, it's a metaphor, it's an idea of to help us describe what we're doing. And
Yeah.
so it's much more helpful, and ultimately we have to take responsibility. How is my tank doing? And so for a lot of guys, stereotypically their tank is physical touch, sex. And if they don't have sex, their tank is low. But what ends up happening is they don't have tools. They either just build resentment, because it goes back to what we talked about before. Well, I'm not having sex, but I know that I should be okay with that because I'm supposed to love my wife. So I'm just going to do the right thing and not bring up that my tank is low. And then what's going to happen? They're going to suffer. They're going to build up resentment and hurt and anger, and it's going to come out in other ways. So that's going to destroy a marriage. Likewise, stereotypically, a lot of women will want quality time, words of affirmation. Their tank will go really low. Hey, we're not really connecting. I don't really feel heard by you, which is a skill. Again, we talked about listening, but that
Mhm.
tank gets low. And then it comes across as they don't have tools either. They go, you never, you always, you don't care, you don't get me. Very accusatory. Without realizing it, a lot of men will defend against the perceived accusation. And then the what is Dave Matthews? The crimes between us grow deeper.
Mm.
It's the thing
Yeah.
until you find in humility a common platform, a common language to go, oh, that's how that feels for you. That makes sense. And that's how it feels for me. There has to be room for both.
Yeah. I think that's super good right there. That last part you said, there has to be room for both. You can't negate and shove off your wife or your fiance, your girlfriend, whatever they're feeling because I also feel this. It has to be it can't be an either or. It needs to be a both and it needs to be balanced in the way you approach that. Like you can't be like, well, sure you do, but I, and then just get in and go straight into you. You need to recognize and take time to listen, like you said.
And that's where the training comes in. That's where it's you're learning to swim. Most of us are standing in the water and we're fine. We're okay. Whatever. This is great until a wave hits us. And that wave is our wives saying, God, I just feel overwhelmed. Like there's too much around the house and you're not here. And we're not prepared. And our
Mm,
nervous system, it's literally a physiological response. This is why the difference between feelings and emotion, your feelings are how you feel, your chest, your stomach, your neck. And a lot of guys go, whatever, that's woo woo. And then I respond, well, how do you know you're hungry? Well, my stomach growls. Yeah, right. How do you know you're tired? Well, my eyelids are heavy. Right. There's a physiological component that goes back to what we talked about with the Trinity, right? This idea. So, anyway, so you're standing in the water. Your wife says, I feel overwhelmed. I feel like you don't do enough around the house. We're not prepared. Physiologically, our nervous system rises up because it feels like an attack. We defend. It's tightness in our chest. We get hit by a wave and we just go into survival mode. I got to get through that wave as quick as I can just to get back to normal. And unfortunately, the way we do that is not by learning to swim, not by boogie boarding down the wave or
mhm.
having fun or going under. You know, like when you get hit with a wave face first, it's terrible until you learn to like go underneath it. And then you're like, whatever, it's no big deal. Um, you get hit. And a lot of men, it's like I get hit by saying, by justifying, by proving to my wife why I do all the things. I try to make her not feel that way anymore. Or I run away and I slam the door because inside physiologically it feels too intense. And I feel for you guys. Like that's a real thing. But you have to figure out a way to learn how to swim. You have to start tracking it. You have to start going, ooh, my wife just say something. I'm starting to feel like a little wave coming. Okay. Now what do I do? Uh, all right, I can do this. You get used to it, and then you work your way up. A lot of us, you take the scale 1 to 10. 10 is the blow up or shut down moment, right?
Mhm.
When we do the worst thing we never said we say we would never do. We get to a 10, and then we have the aftermath and the fallout. And we're like, God, I'll never do that again, and God help me never to lose my temper again, and God, and then what happens? We do it again
Mhm.
because we're at a 10. And so it serves you so much better to track, well, when are you at a 5? Because when you're at a 5, you can still do something about it. And when you're at a 5, you can tell your wife or whatever, hey, I'm starting to feel my nervous system activating. I need a break. I care about you and I need to like process this before I get upset.
That's good. That's good because, like you said, yeah, a lot of people will ignore it, push it off, and deal with it until they just can't anymore, and they hit that 10, and then it's too late. So
Yeah.
that's a really good thought. That's a really good point. Um, yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. I'm just like
Tell
thinking
me if
about.
tell me if this is too much. I know this is
No,
like a
it's not
fire
too
hose.
much. I'm just like I'm working through it, and even in my own
Mhm,
life, I'm like,
mhm.
here's where this is applicable. Here's where this is, and I think a big
Oh
thing for
yeah.
me, I'm like when it comes to like the I don't feel this way, and I hear that, I always try to answer it back when the way I shouldn't. I try to answer it back with logic, reality, the facts, and I take the emotion out of it. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
you may feel this way, but this literally is not it because here are the facts. And in
Uh-huh.
that, in doing so, I don't make anything better when I do that. I just make
Yeah.
them feel less hurt, my wife feel less heard, less
Uh-huh.
understood, and
Yeah.
feel like she's and then to a point where she feels like she shouldn't even bring it up. And that's only gonna
Mhm.
make things worse. And I have recognized that for sure. And my wife and I both like I'm working on this wife. Yeah, help me out with it and things like that. So that's something that I've definitely noticed is I tend to be a very practical, pragmatic, factual person, and I don't let I I have to yeah. So I work on that a lot for myself, but and I'm sure there's a lot of other men that are going to listen to this that are going to have a similar experience.
Yeah. And this is so applicable in ministry too,
Yeah,
just for because people want to be heard. And like just because you know Jesus doesn't mean you're good at relationships.
right.
Like if everyone just got saved, like we would still have a lot of problems because we still
Mhm.
need tools. And every church I've been in, so I finally realized there's no such thing as like a steady church. Churches are always evolving and people are coming and going, and that's just normal. And it doesn't have to be so hard. There doesn't have to be this threat of drama of church splits or
Yeah,
personnel things. There's just a lack of tools to go, I can hear you. I don't have to agree with you, but I can empathize. That's what we
right.
miss. Whenever we try to you can't fix feelings. You can't fax feelings, right? Like you guys probably know this quote, facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, the opposite is true. Feelings don't care about your facts.
yeah,
And there's a place for both.
right.
That's where the balance of truth and grace.
Mhm.
Jesus is the perfect. Like Jesus, if you look at Jesus, he would meet people where they were at. Good teacher, what do I have to do to inherit the kingdom of God? And he's like, why do you call me good? Like, what's coming up for you? What are you really asking?
Mhm.
He didn't just straight up answer. He like saw the heart, right?
Yeah, and, like, there's a few other examples of that. Um, well, when Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, God came to them. He knew, of course, exactly what happened. He's omniscient.
Mhm.
He knows everything,
Yeah.
and And what did he do? Where art thou? Was the first question he asked. Where are you?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
He knew where they were. Well, we're hiding. Okay. Why?
Yeah.
Because we were naked and ashamed. How did you know you
Yeah.
were naked? And then he's like,
Yeah.
why did you eat of the fruit? Well, Adam said, well, my wife gave it to me. And so he,
Uh-huh.
wife, why did you eat of it? Well, the serpent beguiled me. And
Yeah.
he had patience. He listened to them. And then he went to the serpent and he didn't ask any more questions. He cursed the serpent and there on out. But at the beginning, God knew exactly what had gone wrong, and He still
Uh-huh.
asked questions. In our lives, if God, the omniscient, all powerful, everything knows what's going on, will stop and ask questions, because even though He understands, what makes us think that we have the answers in our finite mind? We know exactly why that person did this or said that, and we won't ask questions. We just jump straight to the conclusion of they must have done it because X. And Proverbs 3, I was just talking about this the other day, and I've preached a message on this, and it's a very interesting thought. It says in Proverbs 3, that's where it says that you trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not under thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Right before
Uh-huh.
that, though, it talks about binding mercy and truth about thy neck and writing it upon the table of thine heart. And it said, if you do that, then thou shalt have favor with God and man. And well, you talked about that grace and that truth. You can be truthful, but you have to have mercy with it. And you can't have mercy without truth, because that's compromising. You're not helping anyone. You're just telling people what they want to hear. But if you have truth with no mercy, then you're way too harsh. No one's gonna listen to you. And there's that balance. And the only two people in the Bible, because it says if you do that, you'll have favor with God and man. The only two people in the Bible that I know of that it said that they had favor with God and man is Samuel the prophet in the Old Testament, and then Jesus Christ himself. It says when he was growing up that he grew in stature and in favor with both God and man. And so I'm like, two people for sure right there that would be great examples. If we could live up to be like a Samuel or like Jesus, of course, the perfect
Mhm.
example. And we did it by everything we do, mercy and truth, in mercy and truth. That's where it's at. And not to go too deep into this, but that binding mercy and truth about thy neck, like a necklace. Imagine that
Mhm.
you you would see this necklace. You would be able to see it right now. If I were wearing a necklace, you would see it. It'd be prominent right here in the center of my body. You would be able to
Mhm.
see it. And just like mercy and truth, it needs to be present. It's prominent. It's who I am from the forefront. My first interaction with you is in mercy and in truth. It's evident in who I am and what I say and what I do. And then it's etched on the table of your heart, and that it is a part of you. It is who you are to be merciful and to be truthful.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, like you mentioned, that grace and truth is so important. And if you have one without the other, you're something's not going to go right. Like like this whole thing is balance. It's all balance.
Mhm.
Um, and then I can't help but think of the other reference when you were talking about slowing down and represent, like when your wife is bringing up those, I feel this way. Okay, a soft answer turns away wrath. Okay, so I'm gonna
Mhm.
stop. I'm gonna think about it, be slow to speak, swift to hear. I'm gonna slow
Mhm.
down before I say anything, and I'm going to hear. I'm not gonna just hear, I'm gonna listen. I'm not just gonna listen, I'm gonna actively listen. And
Yeah.
that is like that's the key right there. Now we just gotta use it.
Well, and I love that. I would ask Ethan, how do you do that? How do you show mercy and truth? How do you active listen?
So mercy and truth, yeah.
What's your tactical definition of that?
My tactical definition, it is to, let's say that you see someone doing something wrong or in a relationship. There's something that's obviously not right. Okay. Are you going to walk up to them and say, hey, you, you heathen, you whatever, how dare you? I can't believe you would ever do this. That is and you should not be doing this. You should be doing this over here. You did that all in truth, but you didn't
Mhm.
have mercy at all. And it's like
Mhm.
mercy. Someone makes a mistake. Hey, I'm sorry that this happened. You know, can you tell me? Can you tell me why you did this or how this happened? Let them
Yeah.
answer. Like God asked, what happened? Let
Yeah.
them answer. Listen to their answer. And not just listen to their answer, listen to the reason of their answer. Okay, I don't know. I got angry and I couldn't help myself and I just reacted. Okay. So out of a moment of weakness, not who they are, but in a moment of weakness, they they had this initial response and they regret it and they wish they didn't do it. They wish they could take it back. Okay. And this is where you're listening to what that is. And then mercy comes in. It's like, look, I understand why you did that. If I were in that same position, I probably would have, or if there's that empathy that you're talking about. And it's like, look, this, I understand why you felt this way and why you did this, but we really shouldn't do it this way. And look, can I help you? Like, let's make this better. And here's what the truth is. Here's what we're supposed to do. I work in the children's department at my church. I'm the children's pastor there, and just last week I had to send a kid home early because he punched another kid. And I was like, we can't have this. And I asked him, okay, why did you do that? Well, he made me mad. He did X. Okay. So I'm like, so you punched him after that? Yes. Do you think that was the right thing to do? Took a second. No, it wasn't. Okay. What do you think you should have done? I probably should have told a worker. Yeah, you probably should have told a worker. And then I asked him a few other questions, and I said, "Look, do you think so? Is it okay to hit other kids? No, it's not. Okay." I said, "Look, because of this, I have to do something. I'm in charge here. I have to do this. I have to do something because of what you did. I can't allow this to happen here." So I said, "Today you're going to have to leave children's church early because you hit somebody." Okay. I said, "I like having you here. I want to have you here, but I can't allow this behavior. Do you understand?" Yes. They did not like that answer, but they understood. And I'm like, "Look, I want you to come back next week. And then next week, if you can do this without, and we don't have these problems, it's going to be a great Sunday. We're not going to have any issues. It's going to be great." And that was kind of my way of, I don't know if I have a definition, if you will, a tactical definition to put into words. But in practice, that's what it looks like, with just taking that time to slow down and not be so harsh about it, but still be truthful and
Mhm.
show that. And then that next week, that child came and we had a great Sunday and everything went
Mhm.
great. We had no issues. So I don't know. I hope that made sense. That was my long answer for a
No,
technical definition.
it's great. I love that example. You showed patience, calmness. You were regulating your own nervous system. You were
Mhm.
at like a 5. You knew that you weren't just gonna go in and yank that kid out and right? And so you were calm, that's the first step. You then ask questions. That's another tactical. Curiosity, open-ended question. What happened? Help me understand. Rather yeah, and so, that's good. And I think there's more on that thread to pull. Um, he made me angry, which is really interesting. What other emotion do we use the language of "I'm mad at you"? "I'm sad at you." "I'm happy at you," right? It's
Right.
interesting the language we use, the pronoun or proverb, right? Prepositions. And so, um, it's just interesting how language even shapes that. And so it's worth going, well, what made you angry? Are you like, were you really angry? There's where we have a limit of words that we even use to describe how we feel. Most of
Mhm.
us have 4 words. I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, or I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But those don't always cut it. Um, there's this app I share called How We Feel, and it has this thing called the mood meter, and it divides emotion into high energy, low energy. I love that term because people even use the phrase positive and negative
Mm.
emotion. You heard that?
Yeah.
I think subtly that can creep into, oh, I'm feeling a negative emotion. Well, negative means bad. Therefore, I'm bad or I shouldn't feel this. And that's how
Mhm.
the enemy keeps us stuck. The emotion itself is just, it is. We don't have control over that. I don't choose to right now, I'm going to feel nervous, right? But it
Yeah.
comes up. It's my part of my humanity signaling to me that something's going on. So then I acknowledge that this is uncomfortable. This is unpleasant, but it's not bad. It's unpleasant. And then I go, what is this? Because then if I can name it, then I'm that much more. Maybe he felt overwhelmed. Maybe he felt embarrassed. Maybe he felt
Yeah.
afraid, right? And in those, then it makes more sense. Oh, well, if you felt afraid, I could see why you would punch. I'm not saying that punching is okay, but let's walk through what other things can we do when we feel afraid? What was that like for you when you felt? What other times have you been afraid? How did you handle it then? Right. And just going back to the analogy of swimming in the waves,
Yeah.
like so many of us are little kids punching and
Hmm.
we get hit by a wave and we respond by like thrashing around and grabbing onto the lifeguard. And then we're told, well, don't do that anymore, right? You know, that's not. And we're like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I need help still.
Yeah.
I need help swimming.
That's good. Yeah. And you helped put into words what I did better than I could. So, well, the kids. So you're able to recognize those things. All right. Um, let's see. How can a man rebuild trust after conflict or failure, whether big or small?
Yeah. It's a beautiful question because it plays into the same deposits versus withdrawals analogy, and it also plays into the present moment. Trust is built in deposit interactions over time. And so, what I mean by that, if your wife goes to you to try to share how she feels and you try to fix her or you get a big reaction, she's going to leave that interaction going, that didn't feel good to me. I don't trust that that's going to go well. So, how do we rebuild trust? We make sure that the present interaction we have is quote unquote good. That doesn't mean we have to agree. That doesn't mean we get to the bottom of it. That doesn't mean we totally, fully resolve whatever it is. But we go, I want this interaction to be regulated and calm and respectful. If you think about as kids, why don't we tell our parents things?
Hmm. Yeah, because you're afraid how they're going to respond. Yeah.
We're afraid they're going to get a big reaction. They're going to lecture us. They're going to judge us. So what do? We don't.
Yeah.
It's the same with our spouses. Why don't they tell us things? Well, I don't want you to get a big reaction. And so that's what we have control over. That's how we rebuild trust is taking ownership of our behavior to go no matter what comes through that door, no matter what response comes out of my wife's mouth, I can be calm and regulated. I don't
Yeah.
have to like it. I can defend myself. I can say, "Hey, I'm having trouble hearing what you're saying when you phrase it that way. Can you say it again?" This isn't about being a doormat, but that's how trust is built, consistent interactions over time.
Consistent interactions, like you said, like you may have messed up in the past, but you have a chance now. And if they're
And
willing
that
to if they're willing to
yeah,
bring it up again, this is your chance
yes.
to start over and do it right.
Well, and that is where we're getting into a little of attachment theory and nervous system responses. I'm going to give you a brief overview because it applies to this question. In summary, one person's fight or flight response, one person's response to conflict is I want to fight. I want to tell you how I feel. Because if I can get you to understand, then I'm okay. The other person's nervous system to conflict is flight. I don't want to talk about it. I want to get out of it as soon as I can, in short. And those two people marry each other,
Yeah.
right? And so take this example when there's infidelity. Um, one person cheats, and that person's nervous system is, I want to get out of it as soon as possible. The other person's nervous system goes, today, I still feel a lack of trust because of what happened in the past.
Mm.
And in order for me to build trust, I need this present experience to go well. But they don't have the language for that. They don't have the understanding. This person who did cheat feels threatened by that. Why are you bringing that up now? I said I was sorry. I'm never going to do that again. And they nervous system rises up to defend. And what ends up happening is then this person goes, you're not hearing me. You're not getting it. I can't rebuild my trust
Mm.
because you're mad at me. You're just defending. And then this person goes, I'll never make you happy. I'll never get you to believe me again. I'll always be bad. And that cycle just continues around and around. And it's so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because at what point, at some point, they're going to be like, "What's the point of continuing this if it's going to remain in this cycle?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So taking that time to rebuild after conflict or failure is having a game plan, right? Because you want to be prepared on how to interact so you don't react in the moment. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, when this time comes, if my wife brings a complaint to me, have a game plan. This is how I'm going to handle it. And obviously that is not a perfect system, but it's better than just going into it completely blind and having no plan on how you plan on handling it. And
Can I share with you a tool
yeah.
that if I had to give one tool today, like tactically, talk about a game plan, I use the acronym REV, like you're revving a car engine.
Hmm.
It stands for R is reflect. And you've already been doing that a lot in this interview. You're reflecting back to me my answers. That's showing me, that's communicating to me that you're hearing me, which is great. E is empathize. I could imagine that feels this way. So R, E, and then the V stands for validate, giving validity to. That makes sense why you feel that way.
Yeah.
So if you can practice that, rev, 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 even if you just start with R, reflecting back, what that does is it slows things down and it buys your nervous system time to respond. So your wife
Yeah.
comes in and she goes, and you're sitting on the couch, you just had a long day at work or whatever, and she goes, you didn't buy me anything for Christmas. You don't even care about the holidays or whatever it is. Your first response, if you can train your body to go, I hear you saying that you're upset about Christmas, just even that act buys you 5 seconds to try to slow things down. She's going to feel like you're present with her and send her message again of, yeah, you know how important this time of year is for me and I'm feeling left out. And then you can go, I hear that you're feeling left out this time of year. And you just buy yourself time to go, what is she actually needing? What is she actually saying? And again, this I'm gonna make sure this interaction goes well.
Yeah.
Because old me would go, what are you talking? I'm just sitting here. Why are you complaining about Christmas again? What's your problem? Why can't you know? And now we're fighting.
Yeah. 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 Or I just got home. Just leave me alone. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
all that. Yeah, all that. So reflect, empathize, or empathy, and validate. That's your
Yes.
rev. All right,
Rev.
that's a good tool. That's a good tool. Very helpful if we apply it. And that's the thing. All this, everything we're going to cover for those listening. It's all great in theory, but if you don't ever put it into practice, this has no value. So make sure you put it into practice because um, that's where you're going to get the most help out of it.
I'm wondering, and I know you got lots of questions. I'm sorry, Ethan.
No, you're good. Well, and
There's,
we don't have to get through all of them. We have,
I want to share this story if it helps one person. I just like about putting into practice and why this really clicked for me personally. So one, I had been training as a therapist, so I had some practice, but it didn't really click and make sense until um, my relationship with my dad. And so in 2020, I lost my mom
mm,
at the same time that my firstborn daughter was born. So it was such a cluster of a year. And we moved from Alaska to Arizona, the pandemic, obviously, my mom had cancer, and it was just like so much. I was literally split in two because I'm trying to be excited about my daughter, but I'm also losing my mom. And this pattern kept happening. My dad would just keep saying these things that would trigger me. And I'd be so hurt and upset. And the interactions never went well. I always left feeling, another water analogy, I felt like I was in the middle of the ocean and it was just like adrift and it was horrible. And finally, I was like, I'm just going to try reflecting what he's saying. And you sort of have to take yourself out of you have to just pretend that you're not part of it. you have to go into third person mode. And I was just like, I hear, Dad, that you feel like I took over and made these medical decisions and all this stuff that every ounce of my being wanted to fight and defend and go like, what are you talking about? But I just paused that and I was like, I just reflected, and it was wild. Just it didn't escalate. He felt heard. He was like, well, yeah, that's it. You get it. And I remember where I was in the car. I remember I was sitting in the driveway. I remember it was at nighttime, like one of those core memories, right? And I remember describing to my wife, like, every other interaction with my dad had been adrift in the ocean, and that was the first time I felt like I had some ground to stand on.
Mm,
And that's where the Lord was like, that's the tool, that's the skill, because it's not about me in that moment as much as I want it to be. That's tactically what dying to myself look like, because God's got me. God knows.
yeah.
But I needed, in that moment, I felt like I needed my dad to know, my earthly dad, and that was keeping me fighting, and it was keeping me immature in a sense. And
Mm,
so by pausing that and going like, I don't have to defend anything. I just can choose to listen. And it was like, just everything clicked. And then I started seeing that with my wife, with coworkers, with people on the street. Like, you'd be surprised. We have so many small groups like church Bible studies, right?
mhm,
We've all been there. We're sitting around, or a men's group. Somebody shares something. Man, I'm really struggling with pornography, or I'm really me and my wife, I don't even know how we're gonna make it. And people go, yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing, bro. And then we move on. Like, because we don't know what to do.
yeah.
And it's like such a missed opportunity, because I use this phrase, emotion first responder. So like when somebody is hurting in our circle, to go to them and go, oh my gosh, I hear you saying that you and your wife are stuck. That sounds awful. Like, you must be so tough. Like, tell me more. Like, I want to stay with you. I
Yeah.
use this analogy of, you're hiking at night in the woods with somebody, and you have one like headlamp or a spotlight to share. And what communication is like is, one person says, I need the headlamp over here so I can find my way through the path, because I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna trip. I need your help. AKA, they try to share with us how they feel. But what happens is, we take the lamp and we go, "Shh, I feel this about this. This is what it's like for me. I'm feeling blah blah blah." And we take the lamp and we go on to our path. Meanwhile, they're stuck in the dark and they can't get anywhere.
Mm,
And so, lingering with the lamp to go, I hear you just shared a hard thing with me. I want to stay with you a little longer. um, whether it's your wife, whether it's that kid at church, before we move to the truth, I think, too quickly,
mhm.
to go, what happened for you? What is that like for you? I want to stay there. And I think by that lingering, by that staying, it allows room for healing,
Yeah.
allows room for trust. It allows room for the Holy Spirit to do what he does. And we in our fast culture miss that.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%, especially that last part, that fast culture. Everything. You hear these people from like other countries and missionaries to other countries. They're like, the United States is a fast culture. Everything has got to be extremely
Mhm,
efficient, and you have to
mhm,
just move, 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 move. And like we do that in our relationships, and we do that with our conversations, and we do that with feeling with other people. And I think, like you said, it's just a lack of knowing how to handle it. And it's like you said, we think that we know what we're doing just because we're breathing, but this really is a skill set
yeah,
that we have to develop. So it's okay.
yeah,
You're going to be a little clunky when you first start out. You may not
yes,
say the right things, but the point is,
yeah,
you're doing it and you're trying
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and just that alone, that being present with someone, and even though you don't have the words to say, but saying, "Hey, look, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry this happened to you, or this is you that you're going through this. I'm not sure what to say. Even if you were to say it, be blunt like that, I don't even know how to help you. They're still
Mm,
going to appreciate that more than if you just said, "Good story, bro," and move on.
yeah.
Yeah, that's super important. And like you said, with the flashlight analogy is going with them. And I think we've all been, I think we've all experienced where someone has taken the flashlight or taken the spotlight, and instead of helping you down your path, they just pointed back, "Hey, look, I went through this over here." And I think of a time specifically when after my wife and I had a second miscarriage. This one was more public knowledge because we had just announced that we were having the baby, and then a week later we lost the baby.
Mhm.
But with that, I remember a lot of people trying to like comfort us and pray for us and things. But I remember one guy walked up to me and he's like, "Hey," and he's much older than me. And he's like, "If you want someone who's been there before, uh, come talk to me." He's like,
Uh-huh.
this was like his. They had a situation 40 years back before I was born.
Uh-huh.
They had,
Yeah.
and there was like ours was much worse because,
Yeah.
and he went down the path of how their experience was worse than mine, and
Oh.
because of that, they could help me, and I'm like,
Oh.
I knew where they were coming from, but I'm like,
Yeah.
that did not help at all. And then someone texted me
Uh-huh.
right after we like it was made public that we had lost the baby. Someone said, "You haven't lost anything if you know where it's at." This is basically saying the baby's in heaven.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like I know
Yeah.
that they meant well, but that
Yeah.
is not how you do it. And I think those,
Uh-huh.
especially that first example of just like, you need to not like, I know exactly what you're going through because and then go into a whole story mode, okay? That's
Yeah.
not what it's about. And
Yeah.
I think there's a balance, and maybe you could speak to this, but there's a balance of like letting someone know you know what they're going through, but without oversharing and making it more about you than you are with them. I think sometimes it's appropriate to share like, I know what's going on. Like for example, with a miscarriage. I think it may be appropriate at some time to say, "Look, hey, I know the pain that you're feeling because I've experienced this too." But at that point, I don't know that balance of like, I'm not focusing on me anymore, but I want to focus on you. Do you know of any kind of balance with that?
Yeah.
When it's appropriate, when it's not?
Yeah. That's a well, first of all, thank you for sharing that, Ethan, and being vulnerable. And I can just imagine, right? You're on staff trying to do your thing, well-meaning people come up, and there's probably a moment where it's like, "Oh, maybe this guy can help me." And then he dives into how it was harder for him. He starts comparing, and like, what a gut punch. And then somebody else going, like, well, they're not lost because you know where they are. And that's like when people say, well, God is in control and God has a plan. And you're like,
I
that's
know that,
where
but
so
yeah.
many Christians and people are hurt because they're in emotional distress and they're told, just pray about it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that. I know I need to read my Bible,
Mhm.
but I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And so your question about what's the balance is if there's 10 times, 9 out of them are, what is that like for you? Because I have no idea. Maybe as you get really confident and good at these skills, then you'll be able to discern. And that's where the Holy Spirit can lead you into self disclosure. That's the clinical term, right? What it's like for you. Um, but it's humility to go, just because you're experiencing a miscarriage and I experienced a miscarriage, so I have no idea what that's like for you because I'm not you. I don't know
Right.
what, or if you lost a parent or I lost a parent, I have no idea what that's like for you.
Yeah.
No, and so that takes humility. That takes that curiosity to go. I don't know your story. I don't know the context. I don't know how close you were. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what supports you have in place. I don't know. And so as soon as you start saying, yeah, I felt this way.
Mhm.
Well, meaning as soon as you say I, you're taking the headlamp away from the person. And
Yeah.
so you stay present and you go, that's where you rev the person. Oh my God, reflect. I hear, wow, you got a lot going on, and empathy. I can imagine. That's why I love that phrase. I can imagine, because sort of a knock on the door to invite you into empathizing, I could imagine that that would just feel like such a gut punch or such a, and that's where you got to draw on the words. Angry, sad, afraid, those don't really fit. I could imagine that feels overwhelming. You gotta build
Yeah.
up your repertoire and then validate like, oh my gosh, that of course that makes so much sense. Like you literally just announced this. And then a week later, like you're shocked, you're blindsided. Like you literally got hit by a car.
Yeah.
And if you use that analogy, oh, I got hit by a car too, but mine was way worse, right? Because like it's like sometimes I swear, right? Because I think swearing helps express emotion in a way that we sort of limit ourselves. But it's kind of like screw you, man. Like what? Because that gives words to the anger of like you don't get it. I just got hit by a car. I don't need you to tell me how your car accident was worse than mine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like, you would agree that most people do it for 2 things. 1, because they don't know what to do. 2,
Mhm,
they think it helps be
mhm,
able to say, like, "I can relate," and
mhm.
it's, like, proving, "Hey, I can help you," or, "I'm trying to help you, and because I can relate," and it's like, they're trying to find that bond, if you will, with that. Whereas the bond isn't necessarily it's not really needed at that moment.
Well, it's totally well-meaning. And then it goes back to men and our relationships with our wives. Most people, I believe, have hearts in the right place. They wanna do the right thing, but they don't have the tools. It's a
Yeah,
skill deficit rather than like a heart deficit.
right.
And so it just takes humility to go, like, and it goes back to the love language, right? So
Yeah.
often, like, well, I feel better with physical touch, therefore you feel better with physical touch.
Mm,
So when my wife's hurt, let's give her a back rub. And then she's like, I've been touched by the kids all day. I don't want anyone to touch me.
mm,
And then she goes, that's annoying. And then I go, oh, I'm offended now. I'm hurt because
yeah,
you rejected my, and it's like, let's grow up. Let's be mature men.
mhm,
Let's go. This isn't about me. This is about you. And I want to keep it on you. And I want to, in humility, go, how would you feel comforted right now?
yeah.
What
It's
works
like
for you?
it's like I joked around with my wife before and after, but when she went to go give birth to our daughter, um, last year, I was, like, sitting in a chair that didn't have any back support, be like, "Hey, man, my back is hurting." It's like,
Mhm,
this is not what she wants to hear right now. It's not
mhm,
about me. It's 100% about her right now. She's giving birth and just kinda making
mhm,
those like, I'm like, "Yeah, Brooke, what do we get in there? I don't have back support. You know, I hurt my back earlier this year. You know, I think
mhm,
I probably need some back support or sleeping on the couch for 2 days." You just don't talk about you. Like, man, my wife's going through labor. It's like, man, I'm hurting. My back is hurting. It's like, yeah, me too. That couch last night I slept on was horrible. Not the time. Just yeah, no. It's like I couldn't
Well, and
imagine. Yeah.
And to be clear, like, there's nothing wrong by you saying your back hurts, and
Right.
depending on the context and analogy, that might be the assumed, you're making a joke that's intentionally ironic, like, that may be comforting to your wife. Like, every
Yeah.
couple's gonna
Right.
have their own form of communication, so it's not a hard and fast dogma. It's like learning to read, um, the
Yeah. Read the
emotion.
room. Yeah. Read the room.
Read the
Read the
room.
emotions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That we spent a good time on that one. I enjoyed that point. I've enjoyed all of them so far. And I don't know how much time you have.
I have about 10 more minutes.
Okay, okay. Let me try to pick out
Sure.
some questions that we wanna get here. Um, I think okay, this was one in particular that I know was asked, so, um, let's do these 2 or 3. How does a father help his children love their other parents? So this is like a split home, maybe they have
Okay.
step-parents now.
Yeah.
How does a father help his children love their other parents while still grounding them in biblical truth? I think to give you some context behind that, I think that, one set of the parents aren't spiritual, they aren't
Mhm.
Bible-based, church-going, uh, but the others are, and they wanna make sure that even still then, their kids hold to that Bible truth, but don't resent their other parents or disrespect, and
Mhm.
so, yeah, how does a father help his children love their other parents while still grounding them in biblical truth?
Again, I have to be aware of if my only tool is a hammer, every problem is a nail, but I still look through things through an emotion lens. And so how do you help your kid love your other parents? Like, you love the other parent first, You also acknowledge your feelings. You don't have to like what they're doing. You don't have to like their choices. You could have a fear if they're not saved or not like you're allowed to feel that. And then when your kid says something like, "Man, I'm just afraid of mommy not being saved." You meet the kid where they're at and go, "Oh, like I hear you saying that you care about mommy, huh? I do too." And it is kind of scary when we talk about Jesus and mommy's choosing something different or whatever. Like you can still validate that emotion. That doesn't have anything to do with not loving this other parent. Love is expressed in emotional freedom. We get into trouble when we go, I'm bitter and resentful at this other person. Therefore, I'm going to talk poorly about them.
Yeah.
Mom is so immature. Mom is making bad decisions. Well, you don't you don't know that. That's calling the kettle black a little bit. You
Hmm.
can say, I feel very torn. I worry about mom because I care about her.
Yeah.
What more loving thing could you say to your kid than that?
Yeah.
I care about mom and I want her to be happy and healthy.
Yeah. You're leading by example. With if you want your kids to be this way and feel this
Yes.
way about someone,
Yes.
do the same.
Yes.
And just, yeah, set that example for them that they can follow. Because if you have bitterness and resentment, and like, man, I can't stand, but you need to love, and it's going to send really mixed signals, and it's probably going to cause bitter resentment in the children, possibly to both.
They're gonna model that. No one in the world will respond well to a finger pointed at being told, "You need to do this."
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
It
The do as I say, not as I do does
right,
not. Yeah.
right. That yeah.
How should how should a husband lead when he feels convicted to attend a different church, but his wife is hesitant or uncomfortable with the change?
Well, again, there, even embedded in that question now, hopefully you're picking up on emotion languages.
Mhm.
Uncomfortable, hesitant. The man needs to meet her where she's at. "Honey, help me understand your concerns." Because maybe God is giving her some valid concerns because she's still your wife, right? Have you ever thought about that? It doesn't mean you have to agree, but just help me understand. Well, I'm just worried about the doctrine at this other church. Oh, I care about doctrine too. Help me understand what's coming up for you. Embedded in that question is an opportunity to be an emotion first responder and meet your wife there. But I guarantee you, if you take the route of I'm the man, you need to submit to me, we're going to go to this church, it's not going to go well for you, even if 30,000 foot view, that church is the correct one.
Yeah. Yeah. Goes back to that handling, like that reflect, empathize, and validate. It's like, I understand that this change may be hard for you, and these are your reasons why you're hesitant, and recognizing those things and using that.
And help me. And that's again, replace concerns or with trust. How can I help you feel more confident in this change?
Yeah.
What would help contribute to that for you?
Yeah. And you might even get some tangible answers, things that you can, roadmap, if you will,
You're right.
in that
Well,
situation.
I want to listen to some more. Or, well, yeah,
That's good. That's good. And I think one other question for sure that I wanted to
sure.
get asked was,
Yeah, yeah.
um, how can a man guide his wife spiritually without pressuring her, forcing decisions, or creating conflict? And I think a lot of our other questions have already answered this one, but I'll
Right.
leave ask you this.
Without pressure. Well, are you feeling pressured right now? Well, yeah, you're just thumping me over the head with the Bible. Rev that. Oh, even right now, it feels like I'm hitting you over the head with the Bible. That probably doesn't feel good. And yeah, I guess I have been a little loud and passionate. I'm sorry. That probably doesn't feel good. How can we have this conversation in a different way? See the difference?
Hmm.
That's a tool, that's a skill set versus, no, I'm right. No, you need to do this. I'm going to keep thumping you over the head with the Bible. And that doesn't feel good.
Right.
So there's always going to be, or what were the other parts of the question? Uncomfortable or pressure or
Without
like,
pressuring her, forcing decisions, or creating conflict.
right, right. So pressure, forcing, conflict. I mean, that's the whole Ezekiel. Like God wasn't in the storm. He wasn't in the fire. He was in the still small whisper. Like God never forces. He calls. He hides. It's kind of a paradox. He like hides and wants us to find him because he's never going to burst down the door. So you're
Mhm.
never going to find that same way with your wife. You have to shift, and whatever you have to identify what is causing me to want to force things. What fear am I not addressing that feels like I have to force this right now? That's your question. It's more turn it inward and go, what is coming up for me? And
Yeah.
then once I bring that to the foot of the cross and pause, then I will be more open and have more capacity to go, what is it like for you, honey? Nobody ever was dragged to Jesus. They were invited and called.
Yeah. Bible says if we lift Jesus up, that he'll draw all men nigh unto him. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, he still gives everyone free will to decide.
Mhm.
Yes, I
Yeah,
accept, or no, I reject. And
right.
I think with this, we need to lift up Jesus. We need to live by example, right?
Right.
Lead by
Right.
example in all these areas, and
Right.
then show the roadmap. This is why I believe we should do this. I believe this is what's Christ honoring, God honoring, and lead
If
spiritually.
if
Go
there's
ahead.
room for you to share that why with the other person,
Yeah.
but if we're not careful, that's still just me.
Yeah. If you get, yeah, you have to be, yeah, it's
If
just
they
that the right
ask
time, the
you,
right
if
moment.
they
Yeah.
say, "Honey, genuinely, why do you care so much?" That's a perfect invitation. It's an opportunity. But if they're feeling, religious trauma or beat down or afraid, and then you go to them passionately, "This is why it's so important to trust God." it's it's not going to get through
Yeah.
unless obviously the Holy Spirit is clearly calling you, and that's, only that discernment level. But more often than not, it's like being that consistent presence that I'm here. I'm going to sit with you at the well. You're
Yeah.
going to talk to me. And then once you open up to me and I hear you, then we're going to start dropping some insights, right?
Mm.
And then that's going to call you to change.
That's good. I like the woman at the well and analogy that you brought up there. And it's that open invitation. I'm here. Here's what I am. And as soon as you're ready to talk about it, let's talk about it. And I'll answer your questions rather than, hey, we're going to sit down and you're going to listen right now,
Right.
kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I know you got to get to going. So,
I
hey,
got I
one,
got
our
time for
final,
one more probably, yeah.
okay. We have here's a kind of a question that I ask, and I'll, with everyone we interview, and I'll try to adapt it a little bit for this relationships and things. But if you were to go back and talk to your 18-year-old self and gonna give yourself one piece of relationship advice moving forward, whether that's friendships, girlfriend, whatever it is, relationship advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Yeah. Great question. I I'm gonna say it like this and then explain it. Learn emotion messages. Um, Learn how to validate and reflect emotion because it's so powerful. Because then
Hmm.
you don't take offense at things. You realize that people are just trying to share how they feel. And
Yeah.
if you can do that for yourself and for other people, it's gonna, I wouldn't necessarily trade any of my choices or shift because they've made me who I am today.
Right.
Um, but if I whatever in this opportunity, it would be like, yeah, some of these relationships that you're in, this is why you feel the way you do, and this is what's going on. Because at the time, I didn't know. I had no idea. This is why it's so hard with your dad at times. And this is why. And this is what's going on.
So learning those emotional signals, learning what they mean, learning the reason
Mhm,
behind them.
mhm.
That's good. And if you can
Learning
focus,
to accept them. A lot of us say, I shouldn't feel this.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a subtle trick of the enemy to invalidate your own experience,
yeah.
right?
Come to grips with the way you feel and acknowledge it, own it, and work through
Acknowledge
it
it.
in the way that you should. Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Like, oh, I'm feeling really bitter at my ministry right now. God forbid. But like that happens, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Instead of going, well, I shouldn't feel this way. I just need to keep pushing on. Well, then it always
yeah,
comes out in some addiction or numbing behavior or comforting behavior. But to go, wait, what is this? God's not afraid of my feeling.
yeah.
Oh, I'm feeling burned out. Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Oh, there's this part of me that needs some support.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord. for showing me that. Now, how do I communicate that? How do I help get that need met?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You after you know what it is, it's to address it, so we don't have to live
Mhm,
in this bitterness or whatever it is. Address it
mhm,
to get it taken care
mhm,
of, and everyone, including you and everyone around you, will be better for it for taking care of it.
mhm.
All right. Well, Phil, thank you so much for doing this interview with us. It was very enjoyable, very insightful, and I'm sure our men are going to get a lot of value out of it. And for those of you watching, Phil has his own Skool community here on the Skool platform. So I'll probably link this inside the description of his community there. So if you guys want to join his community and get some more insight from him and his community, feel free to do that. And so yeah, thank you guys for joining. Phil, again, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll talk again over messaging or something at some point. So thank you very much, and I will talk to you guys later.
Definitely. Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate your ministry and honored that you'd reach out and have me join.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir. All right, see you later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.